You feel that disturbance in the Force? It's almost as if another Star Wars project cried out and was suddenly silenced. After the ups and downs of the Skywalker Saga, Lucasfilm is still struggling to make another Star Wars movie, and it seems like this might be their last shot. But we'll cover the full details as well as dive deep into the biggest Star Wars gaming news since Jedi Survivor's announcement. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink, your place for everything Star Wars gaming, the TV shows, and the movies. Let's jump right in.
Just you reconsider playing that message for him.
There is a new Star Wars game. Unlike the movies, which we'll talk about later on in the episode, Star Wars games have gotten past their rough patch. We had been forever in between Star Wars games getting announced and then canned and announced. This sounds really super familiar. But I think we're past a lot of that, probably because they opened up the license, which now any developer can now make Star Wars games if their idea is good enough or your Star Wars Eclipse somehow.
We can't go into that.
Yes, but it's good. We've got Star Wars Jedi Survivor that's coming out soon. We've got a couple announcements from Respawn, who seems to be EA's Star Wars development company, as well as just Golden Child all around.
I mean, I'll take it.
Apex is incredibly popular, still popular. Great updates going on for that game. And then we've got 2 more Respawn games with probably a third iteration of the Jedi series as well. Some of the game developers recently said they think of the series as a trilogy of games. So hopefully it breaks the 2-game Star Wars game curse.
Here's hoping.
Yes.
Good gosh.
But what are we talking about today? One of the games that they announced at the beginning of last year, actually, they announced 2 Star Wars games that they're also going to be working on. One of them is going to be a strategy game that's similar to like XCOM, but the thing that we're most excited about is they announced a first-person shooter game.
Yeah.
And through some job listings.
Once again, the wild way that people find information about what's going on in the Star Wars world is wild.
Yes, job listings. Most of our details for all of the Star Wars games really come from job listings, just because of how long they take to develop. I think the average game development cycle now is like 6 or 7 years. It takes a while. They found references to what style of game this is going to be and what influences. One of them being Dark Forces and the other being Jedi Knight. You're a big fan of the Jedi Knight games, right?
Yes. It was one of the few games that came with my Xbox when I got it. So love them to pieces. But Dark Forces, I don't think I had ever heard of it. I just watched a little preview of like someone running through the game. I was like, oh, this is fun.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think I've ever heard of it.
On the same vein as like Jedi Knight.
Yeah. A
lot of similarities, and it's, again, like Jedi Knight, it's one of the fan favorites. I recently went back and played Jedi Knight 2, and man, that game, controls are a little janky, but that game still holds up very well in terms of its story. It's so fun. You get to see Luke Skywalker building up the Jedi Academy.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Gosh. And that's it. That's the thing with these first-person shooters is that they are all about the story. And they had better do it justice because, man, and I actually have full faith in Respawn to be able to do that. Goodness, what do you think that could be? Like, what kind of a story could they possibly be telling?
I think one of the fun things around like Jedi Knight and Dark Forces is you get to explore the world that we know of in a different lens. And the first-person shooter format, we haven't gotten a game in Star Wars that's an FPS, that's story-driven, in so long.
Truly.
There were also speculation around this game being online. That's purely speculation. They say inspired by classic titles like Dark Forces and Jedi Knight and Dark Forces 2. Quote, our story-driven single-player game is being developed from the ground up, leveraging the power of Unreal Engine 5. So they are planning on having it being a story-driven single-player game. Some people are still hopeful that it will have some multiplayer aspect, which is possible.
It's possible.
The Last of Us, I believe, is getting a multiplayer expansion, as well as, I think, Uncharted has had some multiplayer expansions that have been added. So it's not unheard of, but they are focusing fully on, I mean, they've got the history with Titanfall.
Yeah.
Titanfall 2 has such a good campaign. Mm-hmm. So if they just have that in like a full game, but maybe if it's the scale of like these older games, you can get 20, 30, 40 hours out of it.
Oh, yeah.
What would you want out of a story-driven first-person game?
As far as like the story itself or just in the game?
I think just generally.
I mean, honestly, if you just recreate some of these old games and make them less janky, I'm sold. I'm there.
Just imagine like a Republic Commando in current technology. I would love that.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I just think of all the things that they've done with the clones.
Yes.
In media now. It's like the stories we could whip up with all of the oh my gosh, there's just so much. It's so rich. Star Wars has never been richer, and I don't know.
Is that the era that you'd want to explore? From their references to Jedi Knight and Dark Forces, it sounds like they're going original trilogy, and then they've got the coverage of like post Order 66 with Jedi Survivor, so that it would kind of make sense if they went more original trilogy.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I mean, I don't really have an era that I'm like, it has to be this. No, just give me something good.
Yeah, I agree. I love the original trilogy era, and I think I would want to see in the movies more of the prequel era explored. But in the video games, I love that grit and texture that they have in the original trilogy era, and I think that would be fun. While also, I would like to see some more clones too. Like,
sure,
I would be good for both of those situations.
In the same token, I kind of wonder, a lot of these older games tend to kind of revolve around like the stories that we know and love, like saying Luke and him building the new school and all that. I mean, I don't know if that's canon anymore. I mean, it is.
It is to a sense that was his ultimate goal with the creation of a new Jedi Order, and Jedi Academy. Right. We see that reference in Book of Boba Fett, and we see it in flashbacks in like The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, true.
And is it The Last Jedi? I think we might see some glimpses of it too, in terms of Kylo Ren going bad and all that fun stuff. Yeah. Right. So we get references to it. Obviously, it doesn't end up being such a great success in the older years of it, but I think there's still a lot of that story. There was a really good Luke Skywalker book that I read a number of years ago that looked into it. I don't remember if it's still canon or not, but it was really fun, like early days on that side of things. And I think there's so much that they can get into in there. There's references that they can have as you see in like Fallen Order. You have references to like Saw Gerrera and some of these key players in that era. I think there's some good references that they can have here.
I feel like that's almost what makes it more nostalgic is that when you put in these little moments of...
Yeah, just moments.
Yeah, just like touchstones almost of like, oh, this is where we are. This is how we all fit in with the big story going on here.
It's a good like grounding point to see where you are in the galaxy of like, where are we in terms of people, what's going on, what's the timeline era. But I would also, I think it'd be perfectly fine to just not have that. In the same breath, I can say, yes, I want this, but also it'd be fine if I don't get it, right? Because then they can tell more of a unique story. I think it'd be fascinating if we got more of that like stormtrooper story. I think that would be a fun direction to go down, and it would make tons of sense to have a first-person shooter based around like a stormtrooper.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be an interesting time.
It'd be pretty unique, right? Because we've seen the rebel side, we've always seen the good side, but what if you have like, what if the whole thing is in the process of leaving the stormtrooper academy or whatever, and then like building your own path? Could be cool. Obviously, we've had mentions and leaks and rumors and cancellations all throughout the decades around like bounty hunters. With the rise of like Mando and all of that stuff, like there could be a bounty hunter aspect to it. But I love the idea of having another example of like a first-person shooter that's story-driven, and it's in Unreal Engine 5, which is going to be so pretty, and also make development much easier for them. So we've got the video games, and they've had their own moments in the sun, and cancellations and announcements and then cancellations. There's still a lot in the air, especially around the Ubisoft stuff. But nothing, I don't think anything really compares to the current ups and downs of the movies right now.
Good gosh.
So in between the last episode that we had, there have been quite a number of revealings. On Sunday, there was an interview with Damon Lindelof, and he was not quite so upbeat around it. This is the quote exactly here. Quote, "I will just say that for reasons that I can't get into on this Sunday morning, this day, the degree of difficulty is extremely, extremely, extremely high. If it can't be great, it shouldn't exist. That's all I'll say, because I have the same association with it as you do, which is, it's the first movie I saw sitting in my dad's lap, 4 years old, me of 77. I think it's possible that sometimes when you hold something in such high reverence and esteem, you start to get in the kitchen and you just go, maybe I shouldn't be cooking. Maybe I should just be eating. We'll leave it at that." And then breaking news Monday. Quote, everyone's freaked out and it's, oh my gosh, Damon Lindelof and the other writer, they're gone. And there's a new director attached to it.
This is just kind of wild. Like, what is this? Is this number 2?
It's more than that.
It's got to be, 3 or 4. The fourth person who's walked off on.
You've got Kevin Feige, you've got Patty Jenkins, who both of them, they're basically too busy, and there was just so much like scheduling stuff going on with them.
Right.
In terms of walking off or getting like kicked out, you have Gareth Edwards, who there were creative differences. And then you have Lord and Miller, who were on the Solo project.
Right.
You have Colin Trevorrow with The Rise of Skywalker, which wasn't originally supposed to be The Rise of Skywalker, just episode 9. There have been a variety of people involved with the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. That got added on, kicked off, added on, kicked off. The amount of talent that have been kicked off of Star Wars projects is just unheard of.
Just speculating anyway, or at least picking this little quote of his apart. First of all, he says extremely 3 times.
Yes. That's just, when I read that, I was like, oh gosh, here we go.
No.
The writing is on the wall. We are about to get some news here soon.
Yeah, and that makes me feel like it's on the Lucasfilm side of things, where they're just trying to control it, especially when he's saying, if it can't be great,
it won't be made.
Yeah, don't make it.
And that's in reference to recently, internally, we've got some leaks and discussions that have been going around inside of Lucasfilm and Disney. There is a higher regard for Star Wars movie, and there is more of an eye to more Star Wars movies getting made, that everyone is looking towards it. And according to this report that I saw, that means that the planned Young Indiana Jones series might be looking at a delay or cancellation.
Oh, wow.
And there is a higher priority and a higher value towards more Star Wars movies. But that also means higher pressures on whatever is the next one.
Good gosh. Okay, so we have people finding this burden a burden.
Seriously, it's like a freaking hot coal that directors are getting handed every time they get attached to a Star Wars project.
And at the same time, it seems like they're being told, like, no, make it worse. Almost like that's just how it feels. Like it feels like
this is the most important thing that you can be working on.
Yeah.
But also, it is so important that we're going to make it as extremely hard as we possibly can to make you get something done.
Yeah, and make it good.
Therefore, it's this like stupid cycle of like, hey, I'm excited to make a Star Wars project. Lucasfilm like, yeah, we want a Star Wars project. We'll announce that Star Wars project. And then they get to the point where like, oh, well, this is not good enough. Okay, well, let's go back to the drawing table and get some more ideas up. Well, we don't like any of those. So we're going to kick you out and then put someone else on it to restart the whole process. And then they just keep on going. Therefore, they're like, we need more Star Wars movies. Okay, that sounds great. Let's get some people making some Star Wars projects. Well, we don't like these people. Okay, well, we need more Star Wars projects. And then it just keeps on going, and years are going to go by before we actually get something that's quote-unquote great, which probably won't be great.
No, because at that point, it'll be so sanitized down to their expectation of Disney and Star Wars and pleasing everyone that we're not going to get something actually good.
Yes, it is so frustrating seeing what the heck is going on with all of the freaking Star Wars stuff.
I also wonder if his mention of the cooking is kind of like too
There's
many
too
chefs
many
in the kitchen.
Chefs in the kitchen,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
That's when I read this and I was like, oh, here we go. I was not surprised when the project was canceled, but I was very disappointed. The only hope I have for this project now is the person that they're having taking over the writing. The Peaky Blinders creator is going to be taking over the writing of the screenplay. And not just taking it over, they're nuking it and starting with a whole new idea. They might be doing that because it just came to me. They already said they have some leads. So they had some people selected for the project. And then they were like, oh, crap. Nope, never mind. So we'll see if it actually gets started over, if they're going to keep the characters at least or say, okay, we've got these people. Let's write a story around their strengths and abilities. There's also a director that's involved. She's an award-winning director, mostly on documentary shorts. But the thing most recently that she has worked on was Ms. Marvel, the TV series on Disney+. This is both fascinating and kind of exciting and kind of not exciting. I saw all the trailers and thought about watching Ms. Marvel. Not quite there in terms of like super interesting.
Yeah.
There's just way too much Marvel stuff. But I don't think you can judge someone's ability to direct on a Marvel project, period.
It's true. It's so true.
You as a Marvel director are just there to be in the studio and making sure that the director or making sure that the actors are doing the best that they can. That's about all you have in terms of control.
Yeah.
Creative control is Kevin Feige and the producers and the writers, which they have like 5 or 6 writers on every Marvel project. That is where the creativity, and then you have the tool of the director. Marvel is also one of those places that's in interviews, every actor says it's so great, and then every director says it's absolute hell.
Yeah, I can see that.
Hopefully Lucasfilm doesn't get to this point.
It sounds like they're
But
already
it's-
getting there.
Yeah.
Oof.
So what does this change mean for Star Wars? Well, they're still rumored to be announcing some projects at Star Wars Celebration 2023. Which, reminder, we will be there and we'll have a panel on the influence Star Wars games have on Star Wars. So make sure you check that out Saturday from 12:30 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Room 17. Make sure you check that out if you're going to Star Wars Celebration. It's going to be such a fun time. We'll have tons of great stickers and merch for you if you do show up in a giveaway. But it's rumored that they're going to be announcing some Star Wars projects at Star Wars Celebration. Makes sense, right? There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of motivation for them to make some Star Wars projects. I think they just say, we need these Star Wars movies to get made. Let's get the stories written and then find a director to direct those. Might be the better choice, but that's not how Star Wars has worked for the past 40 plus years. They've always been a director involved heavily in the creation of said project, which I think makes it a lot more lively.
It gives it kind of a personal tone to it because you get to feel the director's pull and push through the whole thing.
That's
what making a movie is all about, right?
Yeah. That's why we know Martin Scorsese. That's why we know Quentin Tarantino. That's why we know these directors. Patty Jenkins even. Like, all of these directors are names and people that you'll follow. Denis Villeneuve, Dune director, Blade Runner 2049. These are people we know and we go to the movie theaters for. Christopher Nolan, even. George Lucas, Steven Spielberg. We would go to the studios. We would go to the theaters for these directors. That's why we would be there. It's changed a lot since the rise of Marvel and it's the rise of pop culture and superhero movies, of course. But I still think that most people will go to the theaters now. They will still go to those directors and still find the people that they really enjoy the stories from. And I hope that Star Wars keeps that as a part of it. I hope it's a key part of its identity of having that experience. But I feel like with Kathleen Kennedy and the pressures on her to get something out, she is going to be more involved in it, and that could be a downside. And I don't have anything against Kathleen Kennedy. I think she's done a really good job of what she's been handed. Some of the decisions I don't think she's made great decisions on, and there are tons of stories of her just not being a good let things happen in a creative way person, which I think Lucasfilm and Star Wars needs.
Yeah. Even just with the documentary that you watched, Light and Magic, like Star Wars has always just been innovative.
Yeah.
And
they created technology because no one else tried the things they did.
And I feel like Star Wars needs that freedom and to be able to breathe and to have new people to breathe more life into it, especially with how big it's becoming.
Yeah. I think with these two people, it is so heavily reliant on my excitement for the next Star Wars project that these people stay involved. Damon Lindelof, wonderful producer. I think he's done some really good work and is very influential. But I think the creator of Peaky Blinders, one of the best television shows, being attached to a Star Wars project makes me even more excited for this project. And someone who's been from the documentary scene where it's all bootstrapping, tight budgets, and trying to get something done under immense pressure. I think that's exciting. But if these two people leave, I'm honestly, I have no hope for Star Wars movies.
Yeah. I don't know. This might be even more writing on the wall. Like, is this the end for Star Wars movies? It can't be, and it probably won't be. But I
think they've changed directors and writers more than I've changed shirts this week.
Seriously? Oh, that's a little concerning. But we'll talk about that later. Man, yeah, I'm starting to lose hope here, and even though there's always hope.
Yeah. I think these two people being involved is very exciting to me for those reasons. How do you feel about this change?
It makes me want to watch Peaky Blinders. You get a feel for this director.
Yeah. Well, if we want to feel of the director, we'll probably have to go to her documentary shorts.
Yeah.
But if we want the
producer,
it's the writer.
Who's
the creator of Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
Which he's very well known through Peaky Blinders for having such an interesting take on these stories and really showcasing the emotional side of these characters who are basically villains, but bringing that humanity and bringing that turmoil and bringing that strife and intrigue, I think is going to be very fun to see.
Now you're making me get attached, and I really don't want to get attached to these people.
You're trying to the Jedi approach over there?
Yep.
Have no attachments.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
I think there's a lot that can go wrong, but I think if they went this far and they're pulling out the big guns, but they've also had other big guns involved in Star Wars projects at the same time. We'll see how it goes. Maybe
next week, maybe tomorrow, we'll hear.
Yeah, literally as soon as we freaking stop the recording, there's going to be another announcement. Oh my God.
They've just stopped making
They've canceled Star Wars movies entirely.
There shall be no more.
Yep. But yeah, I think, like I've said before, Star Wars will only survive if there are movies out. We, all as fans, could live off of the video games, the TV shows, the books, the comics, all that stuff. But Star Wars as a franchise will not keep on being made if there are not more Star Wars movies.
Yep. It is a dark time these days.
Especially for Star Wars. But let us know your thoughts on these changes and what you are thinking will happen going forward for Star Wars projects. Is this announcement exciting? Or are you just like, we'll see how it goes? I think if you don't want to be disappointed, go with the they'll probably leave choice.
Yeah,
and then if they do stay and they do make something, great. But as we've seen before, it's not always the case. But thank you so much for listening to this episode of Star Wars Uplink. You can check us out on all the places at Star Wars Uplink, StarWarsUplink.com to stay up to date on all the details for our panel that's coming up. And make sure that you reach out, contact@uplinkpodcast.com for any feedback, comment on YouTube. You can listen to the podcast wherever you find podcasts. And it's a fun time over on our YouTube channel. We have exclusive ideas, videos, as well as the video version of the show. As always, thank you for listening, and may the Force be with you.